So did anyone notice I left out the last two sentences? Yes, that was intentional, actually. This gospel was, they think, the earliest gospel written. A lot of sources say that. And most of the commentators and historians are agreed now that there is a second ending tacked on to the end of Mark's gospel. Those last two sentences were part of the second ending, and I elected not to include them this morning. But you can read them on your own, so there's a little homework. The way Mark's gospel ended was not acceptable to everybody in the church, so they added a coda. They added something that would make it more palatable. But what I'd like to suggest, just ever so slightly, is that we live in the terror for a moment. That resurrection is not a peaceful Easter Bunny thing. It's a terrifying thing. It breaks all of our paradigms. It gets us out of our comfort zones. And according to this gospel, the women didn't even carry the good news that maybe he was an angel, maybe he was just a man in white. We don't really know. It's not made clear in Mark. But Mark did say that this man in white told the women, Mary Magdalene, and Salome, go tell the disciples that he is risen. He will meet you in Galilee. And they didn't say anything. This Easter story, notice that nobody sees Jesus. Nobody saw him. That's very unsettling. And we are left to discover on our own what we think of the resurrection. Instead of it just being part of the creed that we say automatically, instead of it being just part of who we are as Christians, this gospel makes you wrestle with the fact that it was earth-shattering, explosive, troubling, non-believing stuff. Do people rise from the dead, really? Well, yeah, it's hard. If anybody asks you that, and usually it's a 5-year-old, you answer back something that's comfortable, right? Yes, of course he does. But we have to, each of us, have a personal encounter with the truth of the resurrection, or else know somebody who we trust and believe, and if they believe that Jesus really rose from the dead, then it must be true. But it's okay to wrestle with it, and that's what this message is about, is that the disciples took a long time to understand what had happened. That they did look into the tomb and they saw that it was empty. That different Gospels address this issue in different ways. If you read the resurrection story in all 4 Gospels, and in the book of Acts, which is written by Luke, you will see they don't agree with each other. They disagree. And for me, that is one of the primary reasons that I know it really happened. Because they all had to come to terms with the fact that Jesus disappeared and then reappeared, and that they were able to touch him, and that he ate with them, and that he validated in the resurrection everything that he taught them, everything that he was himself, gentle and meek, powerful leader, and charismatic beauty. And all of those things are validated by the fact that he appeared to them, and appeared to many of them. But each of them, as you know, had to come to their own belief independently. And it was only as the church 300 years later began to coalesce that they came up with creeds. So before there were creeds, there was this experience of the disciples that scared the bejesus out of them. And the resurrection should make us quake, and make us fearful, and make us doubt ourselves, and make us wonder, and make us want answers. And that's what all the disciples did. They went to Galilee. They gathered together. They started comparing notes. Some of the Gospels say it was Peter that told everybody that Jesus had been raised. Other Gospels say, no, it was Mary Magdalene and the women at the grave. And Mary Magdalene spread the good news. And it really doesn't matter. It It doesn't matter, because in the resurrection appearances, Jesus is changed. He is not the same man. Before he died, he was one man. After he died, he became the Son of God in the risen form, and he was there only briefly on his way to the ascension. And the appearances of him were ghost-like sometimes, very human other times, feeding us one time, telling us stories another time. He was ethereal, he was earthy, he was real. He wasn't a ghost, but he was different. He was changed. And that's our challenge this Easter morning, is if we wrestle with the texts, we should quake in our shoes. It is a scary thing to be transformed, and we don't like being bumped out of our comfort zones. But Easter bumps us, and bumps us in a grand way. So we give thanks for all the different renditions in our Bible. We give thanks for the Holy Word. And we give thanks for each one of us who does this thoughtful wrestling with the Scripture and comes to our own belief through the help of those of us who would like to spread the good news. And this role shifts places. You become a teller of the good news, and then you're a receiver. You don't always feel like sharing. Sometimes you need help. And that's what a community is for, to reach out and help sometimes, and to be the receiver at other times. Hallelujah, the Lord is risen.
The Lord is risen indeed. Hallelujah.